Aloha. Welcome to the Maui Pono Network interviews for Upcountry. We're doing it for District 12. And with me is Keoni Kuoha. And we are, right now we have interviews with Lucianne Dene as our interviewers with Ann Picathley. We will be just going in this order with Lucianne and then Ann and then myself. So I will ask the first question, Keoni. Could you first give an overview of all the different areas that are involved with District 12? And can you also give your overview of why you feel you're well qualified for this important position?
Certainly. So District 12 includes Makawao, Hali'imaile, Olinda, and it goes all the way around the mountain to Ulupalakua and Kahikinui side. And and then it stretches a little bit down to Pulehu along Mokulele Highway. I first really started thinking about running after the fires. I was working for Hawaii Community Foundation and was really involved in fundraising and response for the fires. And through that experience, I saw a huge need within our community, but I also saw how our county, state, and federal governments could coordinate and really work better. I was, a lot of great work, a lot of great people in those spaces, trying to make a difference. And at the same time, those institutions are not working as well as they could for us. So that pushed me forward, and just in my background, I've spent over 30 years in nonprofits, in community engagement. About 20 of those years have been in leadership of nonprofits, and so my heart's really with the needs and the empowerment of our community. And this is just one more way I realize I need to step forward, step up, and step into a public role to enable that even further.
Keoni, could you list some of those nonprofits that you've been involved in?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm currently chair of Lele Aloha, which our leader Archie Kalepa started before the fires, but it really picked up in response to the fires. We work in Aina-based education. We have a voyaging program, and we also have a program to support residents who are rebuilding. I have also worked and helped establish the long-term recovery group, Ho'ola ya Maui Akama. That was a direct result of the fires, and that was a result of many folks advising us that a long-term recovery group needed to be stood up. That's how the feds sort of responded. It was part of the structure of responding to fires. And so far we've rebuilt a handful of homes. The focus specifically of the long-term recovery group is building for those who are uninsured or who are underinsured, because those folks have the greatest challenges to rebuild. I was also the co-founder of Aina-based education organization called Papahana Kuola, and we founded that over 20 years ago, and we have thousands of learners that come through the program every year, extensive relationships at this point with DOE schools. And then besides that, I've served on many boards, strategic planning committees, things like that, just to help strengthen the organizations that serve our community.
Yeah, then I'll add on that the Charter Commission also,
Yes,
which
I was vice chair of the Charter Commission, where I served with you, Paul. Thank you.
Lucianne, I'll pass it to you.
Well, given your grassroots background, Keoni, I bet that you have certain things that you think that are really the top issues that face the people in your district. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you see as your role if you were in the legislature of addressing those issues? What are a couple of top issues, and what would be your plans to try to move things forward and make things better?
Yeah, it starts with the process itself, and I have several thoughts around how we improve the process, increasing democracy for our communities, increasing responsiveness of our political leadership. I would like to see rules changes, just simply within the House. so that no one committee can kill bills without some transparency on that, and especially not the finance committee, and for bills that do not have a price tag on them. So, that's one of the things. As well, I'd love to see term limits. And it's funny, it seems like, that might be a kind of common thing for politicians to say, and then it never happens. I really do believe we need a better flow of leadership. If we can get the Senate to do it as well, great. But if only the House has term limits, even that it increases the ability for our community to cycle in, and we have new and fresh perspectives coming into the House to write the laws that we live by.
So those are systemic things. Yeah,
those are systemic things, and
yeah.
I'm very, it's like if you can't fix the process, then you keep producing the same outcomes. And it's hard to get better outcomes out of our process because it's so entrenched, and there's a lot of established voices in there, and it's hard to get new voices and new ways of going about things. Besides those things, water for upcountry is huge, and it's not just one thing, it's a lot of different things. But it's ensuring that our water supply is protected, is not held by private entities, that it's upgraded so it's not leaking all over the place. I know that Kula is asking for two 500,000 gallon tanks to be integrated into the upper system, and that just makes sense. That's both for water supply as well as fire response and general resilience. So it's things like that. We also need to be recycling our water and putting the money into our waste management system in order to recycle the water to a level that it may be drinking water standards. We probably would still use it for agriculture, but it's something that builds additional resilience. That's pricey, but at the same time, as we look at rainfall projections, we need to start creating some additional water resources, and with a lot of abundance, that reduces the pressure on our streams, and more of it can go to our wildlife and our taro farmers and simply those who enjoy the beauties of our Āina. Besides water, housing is a huge one. And this is another area where politicians love to talk about affordable housing, but the issues are really entrenched, and you pull on one and you start pulling another part of the system out of balance. I think the county and the state need to start using their lands to develop rental housing. And I would love to see those lands eventually, that inventory being big enough that our government actually helps regulate the prices of rental housing, not through some law, but simply by setting their own prices and influencing the market that way. Another area that we really need to expand into is deed restrictions. Not any deed restrictions in terms of income per se. That's the kind of deed restrictions you might find on projects, and those tend to have twilight time, so they last 10, maybe 15 years max. I'm looking at deed restrictions that would enable only local buyers to purchase housing. And how many stories do we have of someone? I just heard one recently. They had a house down the street, their son wanted to buy it, and a cash buyer from somewhere else came in. So this kind of deed restriction is for the longevity of the property, and it restricts buyers simply to local buyers, right? So we still have a market, it's still competitive, but we don't have to compete with folks that have oftentimes way more money and cash resources to use in the process. I can keep going on. But
thanks for that great introduction, though. You are
there's so much there.
So given so much thought to this.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass you on to Anne. You've already taken our answers to 2 or 3 questions here, but thank you for being so prepared and
you answered a lot of questions
and so passionate about what you would like to accomplish. Anne, your turn.
Yeah. Hi, Keoni. So while you served as the, do I have this right, the House Maui Initiative at the Hawaii Community Foundation, where you address systemic drivers of the housing affordability that face the crisis that faces Maui families. You talked about affordability and for housing. There was some recent funding for more affordable homes at the state level, and also my question is how much of that went to Maui? How much of that funding for affordable housing went to Maui from the state?
I am not sure. I
Okay.
did not track the
I wonder
number.
if it's enough because they seem to have kind of a variety of affordable housing there. We have like Kauhali, the tiny homes, but nothing in proportion to what they seem to have offer in Oahu.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of that, if it's often through the HHFDC, which is the housing authority, and it's dependent on developers coming forward and providing a project for funding and jumping through all the hoops. So you know, that would change year by year. It's not I don't believe it's a per island allotment, but it's a competitive process looking at the best developments that are presented to them.
Okay, thank you.
Keoni, my question next is around education. We certainly have challenges with our local school system that we have, and it being controlled by the state could raise also other challenges. What would you propose in terms of improving our education system?
So that's another area I can go on for a while. I served well I've taught at university. I've taught young ones, and I spent some time at the high school level teaching here on Maui, and it's, you know, for one, it's about having enough revenue tax base in order to pay our teachers well. And in order to attract, it's not just about paying teachers now. That salary attracts the next generation of teachers. And if our young people look at their teachers and see them struggling, and they need to have multiple jobs just to survive, that is not going to be an attractive career pathway for them. And honestly, we want our brightest and best students, the future teachers of Maui, to be those who do best at that career. And right now we're losing those folks to other careers that, you know, they can make ends meet here on Maui. So that's one of it. And then, you know, in terms of tax base, I know that our non-owner occupied second homes on Maui County has a huge tax base there that is untapped. There, you know, our property taxes are some of the lowest in the United States. And at least for non-owner occupied properties, there's a huge opportunity to increase that. And with that increase funding for the county. And I think that the DOE should, and the state should, create a structure where the county can supplement the budgets of the schools in the county, and in sort of exchange also have greater home rule over the schools. And in that way, you know, if Maui County decides, hey, we want to double the benefits and the salaries of our teachers, our top teachers, we could do that, right? Because there's a tax base. Right now, our state level tax base is a little constrained, even though there's some great areas to expand that as well.
What about housing for teachers? Also, that's a big issue.
Yeah, you know, and while we're talking about housing for teachers, I think we should also mention agricultural housing, and how do we enable housing for larger farms without making permanent settlements in an area where, you know, maybe at some point in the future we want to expand agricultural production in a place. Both for teachers and for agricultural workers, having housing reduces the costs for those folks, and it increases the benefits and the potential of educators and Āina stewards to be working here in Hawaii and staying here in Hawaii.
And just one final question about the infrastructure of our schools itself.
Yeah.
There has been certainly challenges when I look at some of the schools that were supposed to be renovated 20 years ago, and it hasn't been done.
Yeah.
What are your so how would you address that?
Yeah, I think increasing the tax base for housing, I mean, excuse me, for our schools, and having our counties get to prioritize things like that. That's the way to go. I also think that, you know, we need a department that's less bureaucratic. that is more about coordinating across our educational system as opposed to controlling all the levers of the education system. I think that would do much better for everyone. And that's one way to increase the quality of our schools significantly.
Thank you, Keoni. Lucienne.
Well, I'm going to segue to a subject you've already touched on, and that is our wastewater systems. Of course, Upcountry only has one wastewater system that's private, the Pukalani. So all of Upcountry is basically unsewered, and a lot of Upcountry has cesspools. And as we all know, there's going to be a mandate to convert these cesspools within the next, 15 years or so. Uh, and it's a very expensive proposition. So some funding was put aside on the ledge this year from the green funds, a couple $1 million to create a revolving loan fund. Do you feel representing, if you were to represent Upcountry, that more needs to be done or different needs to be done? Or, how would you put your your intelligence to the task here to try to solve some of these problems?
Yeah, for one, that cost, it was a decision made, decades ago, usually, right? And we're living with decisions that many of which have been made decades ago, and we just continue living with them without making new decisions.
Yeah.
And so part of that is, I say that because I think government needs to recognize that and supplement, create a bridge for folks to make up gaps. I think a revolving loan fund is a great step. I also hearing from a number of our residents in Pukalani, I hear that the wastewater fees are just skyrocketing, right? So there's something going on. I don't claim to know what it is, but is there an opportunity to potentially expand the wastewater system upcountry so that fewer homes have to be on a septic or sewer system, and also find ways of creating opportunities for folks to convert. I think both of those things would be important to explore, and together, I think there's certainly always cost savings opportunities when you're looking at looking at expanding the group of folks who are supported and included in the solution. And so that's something that I would like to look into more.
So you're saying if maybe more people could join an expanded sewer system Upcountry, it could maybe lower the rates for those who are already on it?
Yeah, and at the same time, what would it take to transition a private system into a public system? I think we're moving in the right direction when we're making water systems public, freshwater systems public. It's great to also look at how we're dealing with wastewater, because otherwise these are just issues that we're pushing down the road. Even any kind of septic system is an issue being pushed down the road, and potentially water being lost to the system, where it might be reclaimed and utilized for the multiple needs we have for water.
Yeah, good thoughts. Thank you for that answer. Going to pass you on to Anne.
Hi, Keoni. My question is, what do you think were the most important bills to come out of the 2026 legislature? And what failed that should have passed? And what passed that you wish had not passed?
Yeah, I think I have sort of an idea that it kind of covers all three of those areas. I served on the governor's Green Fee Advisory Council this year, and because the green fees, those funds were coming out and being allocated. I think it's a great thing, Act 96. I think that we need to do more in order to ensure that funding is going to disaster resilience, infrastructure resilience, and environmental protection. Those are all things that our community needs in order to weather the years that are coming. At the same time, looking at what happened in the ledge, naturally, those funds were kind of picked apart. The advisory council suggested projects. We had a very, I think, good framework to deciding which projects should be funded in the first year. And some of those projects were funded, and that's a huge win. And about 40% of the projects, however, were simply not really connected with the purpose of the green fee, and that is concerning. And so I would love to see that law be strengthened. It currently includes some funding. Actually, a third of the funding is supposed to go to tourism and sustainable tourism. I think we need to revise how we look at that and allow tourism to be a secondary beneficiary, but not require that to be a direct beneficiary. Because of that particular stipulation, beach replenishment was looked at, and I don't think we should be spending those particular funds on beach replenishment. And then at the same time, the green fee needs to be made into a fund it's a multi-year fund, and that doesn't that way we can have multi-year projects, and we can actually make some commitments into the future around some of these responses that need to happen. And close to my heart is reforestation, and because I work for the Nature Conservancy, I love our forests. I'm hiking up there. Our native plants are really important to me. And so that's something that, it's going to be a multi-year process. And when you reforest, in Hawaiian, we say, hahai kaua I ka ulu la'au, the rain follows the forest. And in order to sort of protect ourselves into the future, we really are going to have to strengthen our forests. But the Green Fee Fund could also fund, say, hurricane clips, which is a relatively inexpensive but hugely impactful. And we just, we have a El Nino year. We may be getting more hurricanes than usual, and we want to be prepared for that, because that could lead, if a hurricane hits us directly, that could lead to huge personal lives and costs, but also a huge economic downturn in the loss of homes and businesses because of that. So I just in that one piece, I think there's wins, there's losses, and there's huge opportunities.
Can you share like a little bit more information about the green fee, where that money comes from?
Yeah, the green fee. Yeah, absolutely. The green fee is collected from our transient accommodation tax.
Okay.
And was recently expanded to cruise ships because they were not paying the TAT. And it's estimated to bring in about $100 million a year.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Keoni, my question has to do with how our residents are struggling economically. There's about 60% of our residents are having difficulty making ends meet. The middle class is eroding at a rapid rate. What could you do, or what would you suggest or propose on a state level that could help our residents here on Maui?
There's multiple opportunities at the state level. For one, there's I think the earned income tax credit should be entirely refundable. Right now, you can get your tax bill to zero, but you don't make back any of the tax monies that you might have spent. And for our families that at the lowest rung of the earnings ladder, that makes a huge difference. And so that's one area. I would like to see our general excise tax, that law sort of refined so that it's not taxing essentials like groceries and medicine and things like that. I think there's an opportunity to reduce the tax burden on small businesses, especially startups, so that we can get a little bit more economic opportunity going in Hawaii, because that's creates a cycle that feeds throughout the cycle and feeds more income into our state coffers. I think one of the reasons we haven't been able to adjust the GET is because the state is dependent on that. And so it's about looking at additional revenue sources. And one revenue source that I think is worthy of looking into is the what is it called? Conveyance tax when you're selling a home. I think when you are not a resident of Hawaii, or if you're selling a second home, that the conveyance tax should be much higher. And in that way, both, we find a new tax revenue source for the state, or an expanded revenue source, and we disincentivize the kind of investor approaches to our Āina that we've seen for too many years. Now, besides that, I think there's our system prices increased because of our shipping issues. And I got to talk to some folks about that, and it's hugely complex. But part of the challenge is that if the shipping only went to Maui and the Big Island, it would be much cheaper. But the cost of shipping and especially small cargo shipping to our smaller ports really increases the cost for everyone. At the same time, we want to make sure that our smaller ports have access to the goods and services that are coming in between the islands and from outside of Hawaii. We need to figure out a way to make it more efficient so that we're not losing so much money on a system that it's essentially a one-size-fits-all system, but we have multiple sizes in Hawaii that we need to take into account. If we can reduce costs in any way along those lines, I think it'd be worthwhile.
Could you give your thoughts on the Jones Act then, in terms of our shipping and costs?
The Jones Act, there's different pieces, and I'm not an expert in it. I think the American shipping industry and shipbuilding industry has gone down hugely in the past, I think since the 70s or 80s. And most ships are built in China and Korea and places like that. And so, when you have to have a ship that's built in the United States, and there's such a small sort of number of ships being built in the United States, naturally that is going to be a much more expensive proposition. The Jones Act also has requirements around labor. And I think those are good requirements, that labor be American labor at the ports and on the ships. But I think there's adjustments that could be made. Of course, that's a federal thing. But if I have any say in it, I would like to make some adjustments, some smart adjustments that enable some of the better parts of the Jones Act, because it's not entirely a bad thing, but also recognize the challenges that the Jones Act has created with the United States not being a shipbuilding nation anymore.
Thank you for that, Keoni.
Yeah.
CN.
I'm going to move back to water.
Oh, yeah.
You're probably one of the top three most prepared and knowledgeable candidates we've interviewed this season. It's just tempting to get your point of view on so many different topics. So there's a lot of funding from the state in the county's budget for water projects, for upcountry especially. And of course, there needs to be a partnership like you mentioned. But there is one project that's been a little controversial with a lot of folks upcountry, and that's the idea of funding through state and county funds a connection of the upcountry system with the central Maui system. And the water director thought that it would bring more water opportunities to upcountry, but folks upcountry with a long history of watching the weather say there's not too much difference between the weather in central Maui and upcountry, and they think that, if it's a rainy year in East Maui, it's going to be about bringing East Maui water out to, South Maui or Central Maui. My question is process. If you were elected and there was a bit of a tug of war over something that got state funding, how could you, as a representative, help find a dialogue among the parties so that your constituents could be heard, and if their concerns were real, maybe a different plan could be approached?
Yeah. So my current job is as a consultant, and specifically I work in community engagement consultancy for institutions. So I've worked I've done a project for the County of Maui. I'm doing a project with Hawaiian Tel. They want to land fiber optic cables across the islands and, increase bandwidth and access for our rural communities. So, I don't take every project, but those projects that seem impactful to our community, I step in and help, because our institutions are really unprepared to talk to community. And so I step in and help kind of be that bridge. Community, for instance, in Hana, like the community clearly said, we don't want the fiber optic cable landing here. And it took a while, but finally Hawaiian Tel heard it and realized why. And it took some sort of creative thinking on their end to change. Now, to take that same idea to the water issue here, I would apply the same approach. Recognizing that our institutions don't have histories of working with community. They don't know how to hear community. And then the problem solving that happens when, maybe it is a great idea, but there are some facets like this concern about water, being reversed and some of Upcountry's water feeding Wailuku. Is there a policy solution? Is there a rules solution that could help protect against that? Right. I do see why, Wailuku side, they don't have water restrictions like us because they much of their water source is aquifer and their water their surface water as well has been pretty consistent. But that's just in the past, right? We're expecting lower rainfall in the future. So it's hard to tell, but it's about hearing what's being said, understanding the intention of what government wants to do, and then finding, any particular levers that allow for multiple concerns and aspirations to be achieved at the same time.
Thank you. Appreciate that thoughtful response. Passing you on to Anne.
Yeah, hi. So my question is, Hawaii is the only state in the nation that doesn't require a fiscal analysis for bills.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of leaves us lawmakers in the dark about how much a piece of legislation will cost. Do you think they should be forced to put a realistic price tag on the legislation they introduce?
Absolutely. I don't know why that hasn't happened already. I believe that an independent office of the legislative analyst has passed, but has never been funded. That's my understanding. By the way, I'm learning a lot through this campaign, and so some of what I'm talking about are from my deep dives into any of these issues. But knowing that is there, I don't understand why we don't ensure that we have a reliable price tag to our projects. Because otherwise, so much money goes out. We say, we tell the public, oh, it'll cost X number of dollars, and then it ends up costing twice as much. And okay, yeah, somebody won by like the project started and they got awarded, but then all of us lose faith in the system, right? When we lose faith in our government can do less and less. And really, we want our government, where it makes sense, to do more. And so to me, it's another system approach. But we need to know the price tag, and we can't pretend that things don't cost as much as they really do.
Yeah, and I'm kind of unfamiliar. Would that be a part of the finance committee or budget committee or what?
Yeah, there's I think most states have an office like that. And I would look to how their process works to see what might work best for us.
Okay, thank you.
Keoni, my question has to do with what you mentioned about your community engagement, how you're reaching out and connecting with the community. What would you do to get our community more engaged in our not only local politics, but state politics, and work with their education so that they can be more engaged, more involved, and even help with the number of people who go out and cast a ballot?
I think one opportunity, and especially having been on the trail and people telling me, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. I see the opportunity as, and my role, should I be in that position, as a facilitator for them to think through and build advocacy around their ideas. I do a lot of that. I have done that a lot for grant proposals, both as a nonprofit leader, but also having served in Hawaii Community Foundation and having folks come forward with ideas, and I would advise them, okay, if you shape it this way, if you organize your proposal this way, that will make it, or be more likely to make it through the process. I think the legislative process is very similar. But it seems like a black box to most people. As an educator, as sort of a grant writer, I would love to open that black box to folks. And if people in the community are willing to lead in terms of, bringing people together and pushing forward with ideas, and then if it makes it to the ledge, to advocate in front of the ledge or the county council, if it makes it there, I am happy to be that facilitator to help them think through the ideas. and make them something that's easy, like that is more likely to pass. I think that's at least one area where my experiences in all these in these fields and particular parts of our community really can be put to use. I would love to see, just empowering more and more people along those lines would be amazing.
I agree. It would be amazing if we had more empowerment like that and more engagement with the community. And your suggestion sounds great. So thank you. I'll pass you on to Lucianne.
Thank you. I'm going to skip over to food security and agriculture. The state has a certain role in our agricultural policies. Uh, do you see any way that legislation should be introduced to increase the food security of the state through the hand of the State Office of Agriculture or the other agricultural agencies that the state has? Could they be doing more to really make sure that we're growing more and have more food available here in Hawaii?
One thing that I think about are just the costs in growing food in Hawaii, and land being a huge piece for upcountry fencing for the deer is a huge piece. I see opportunity there to, if there were ways, and I'm still trying to understand this and look forward to learning and growing this idea more. But if there are ways to disincentivize the use of egg land for, eventually becoming housing or anything like that, and looking at even maybe a tax system, and I forget the particular type of name, but a tax system where, if you are not using land, you actually may have a higher tax bill than if you're using the land. There's a particular name to that taxing approach, but any way to and then put resources into and supporting farmers. Countries around the world know that growing your own food is important, and most of them subsidize their farmers in some way. If that's what we need to do, I think we should start doing that. There's also some legislation has passed around institutional purchases. So the DOE is looking at purchasing, and so those have passed already. And my understanding of
Taken
why
years, right?
yeah, but
Yeah.
great, the law has passed, and then there are all these sort of internal issues within the DOE institution. Their purchasing processes, right? Their procurement processes need to be changed. And then on the other end, farmers need to scale up, right? If a school is going to count on farms to provide the lettuce or tomatoes, they need to know that their order is going to be fulfilled. And so there's sort of this stop and start, and there's some growth issues, maybe growing pains here that I think the state could help bridge through funding and maybe even other support mechanisms.
Maui County has two county ag parks. One is not fully developed yet. It's just fenced, and the land has giant gulches in it. It may not support that many productive farms, but do you think there's any call for the state to be looking at prime ag land in Maui that's not being utilized
Oh,
to
that'd be
acquire for a low cost place where people who want to farm can lease space and have a reliable operation?
yeah, yeah, that's great. And I know that the state makes purchases like that
They
elsewhere.
do. They do elsewhere.
And so, identifying any prime ag land, and that can directly address the land cost that so many farmers face, really reduce that. I have some other, they're a little out of the box, and I'm not sure where they go, but I think that there is an opportunity coming from an Aina-based education background. I think there's an opportunity, a bridge opportunity between high school and college to get our high school graduates into our, like our farms and working for half a year or a year, because and not just farms, our Āina restoration projects, other places, maybe even caring for kupuna. But I think those kind of, if our system isn't creating a sense of kuleana in them yet, I think that kind of experience would certainly create more kuleana in our young people. And when they go away, especially our college prepared young people, when they go away, they have this tie that keeps pulling them back to Hawaii. I want to make sure that they come back and have a Hawaii and Maui that they can come back to.
Like a local Peace Corps sort of thing?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
But
wow.
like this has been playing in the back of my mind. You're the first people I think I'm saying this to, but like there's so many scholarship programs, and the scholarship program requires like community service while you're in school. Well, why not coordinate with the scholarship programs and have this year of service essentially, prepay their service for the scholarships. And large institutions that provide scholarships like HCF and Kamehameha schools could write it into their requirements and say, hey, you got to spend this year in service to community in order to qualify or to receive the scholarship. Those are sort of coordinated things. It's not state, it's not county, it's much larger than that. But I don't think that there's anyone out there that's really kind of thinking through that issue and finding solutions.
Very inspirational. Anne, are we down to our last questions, Paul?
We are. We're getting there.
This is my last question, or do we do another round?
This may be your last question. We'll just see how our timing goes as we continue. Okay, Anne?
Okay. Yeah. So Keoni, how do you plan to fund your campaign? Like, will you accept donations from small or large businesses or off-island contributors or?
Yeah. I have been funding my campaign almost entirely from friends and family, folks that are following me online. And we brought in, I think, over $16,000 that way so far. But that has limits. And I have made a couple asks. I haven't signed, there is a pledge.
The Hawaii pledge.
The Hawaii pledge. And I agree with almost all of it. But I have one really close friend who has a consultancy, and she does business with government, and she's supporting me financially in part. And I think I understand why they have those rules, but it's a little, to me, simplistic. I'm thankful to every donor from $10 to $1,000, $2,000. And I am always going to make the right decisions because they're the right decisions and not because someone paid me. And, having worked in philanthropy, I see that sometimes that is often a hard thing to do, right? I worked in a program where we mainly got funding from building interests, right? The House Maui initiative. We have developers and carpenters, and they have a certain sort of perspective on what the solutions are. And even though they never said, hey, do it this way, do it that way, in the program, we always had that like, ooh, if we do this, are we going to stop getting funding? Right? That's the tug of war that's going on. And I am very cognizant of that. And I'm always sort of monitoring myself and be like, am I doing this because I think someone's not going to give me money? And as soon as I realize, I'm like, okay, that's a stupid reason not to do it. Right? So it's complex. I will take money from developers. I have a couple that are supporting me. I haven't asked them to donate yet, but I'm open to it. And as long as they understand what my stance is on development and it aligns minimally with what they're looking for. And I think there's at least a handful of developers that really do want the system to get better, and are willing to support candidates that want to improve the system, even if it means we can't build more luxury homes in Makena.
Yeah. Well, I've seen this history living here a long time, 39 years, that the donor party always wins. So donor party candidates always win over the voter party. And how do we confront that? Like with like considering like the massive influence of the Hawaii Carpenters Union. Is that
Yeah.
called the For Better Tomorrow? Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah, you know, and part of that is I would love to see our campaign, our public financing of campaigns. I think the amount for countywide seats is doable, and I've seen candidates succeed with that. For the House, it was pennies, and I would have had to like limit my intake of funds, and I wouldn't be able to compete. So you know, there's room to improve that campaign finance law to allow more grassroots financed candidates to essentially compete with folks that are bringing big dollars from special interests.
I'm surprised that not more is given to the House over counties, State
Yeah,
House.
the county is a county-wide race, whereas the House is a smaller district, and part of it is tied to the size of the population.
Thank you.
This will be last question. We have time for one more round. Each have one more final question.
Okay.
And my final question has to do with our heavy reliance on tourism. You already mentioned when you answered Lucianne about some of the things that you would do but are there specific industries that you would like to bring in or specific things that could help expand our economic base here in Maui?
Part of so that equation has sort of these really challenging issues, and part of it is the cost of living and the cost of housing and the cost of, you know, any kind of space. Businesses need, especially startup businesses, need low cost space. Large businesses that are, you know, competitive, you know, I don't know how much we want to invite large industries, any type of, you know, industry from outside of Hawaii. I think the wish of many of us is to start growing homegrown businesses that can scale up and maybe go national, right? Maui Brewing, right? We have Ocean Vodka. We have some examples of that, and so it's a matter of creating the space for our small and even mid-size organizations to scale. I mentioned the GET issue and trying to starting a business. It shouldn't take it should take a day, right? It should be a form you can fill out. You shouldn't have to consult a lawyer. I've consulted, you know, in starting my business, I've had to talk to a couple lawyers. You know, just it shouldn't be that complex. It should, and at the same time, the accounting and sort of the taxation and money side doesn't have to be this complex. And that just takes someone with the clarity of goal and the creativity to make a system that is streamlined, right? And so I think those things, what I see with for instance, our food trucks, right? Because a food truck is a smaller investment than say a lease on a space, that has naturally sort of allowed an expansion, and we've seen a number of businesses that start as food trucks become, you know, brick and mortar businesses. I think that there are, and I don't know what all the opportunities are, but I think there's a number of opportunities in food industry, in refined foods like, you know, chili purple water or, you know, whatever, that can become, you know, household products. I would love to see as well more like we have bamboo. Why don't we have a bamboo industry that's making utensils and things like that? Like what could really, you know, what aligns with the gifts that we've been given and would really feed into a system here in Hawaii. I don't know why we're not growing all of our mushrooms, right? We should be growing all of our avocados, right? Our local avocados are way better. There's a barrier there that I'm not sure what it is, but I look forward to finding out what it is.
Great. Thank you for that, Keoni.
Yeah.
Lucianne, last question.
Yeah, I'm going to build on that a little bit. You know, the state has in the past invested in opportunities for economic expansion in Maui. They invested in infrastructure to allow the tourist industry to get a start in places like, you know, Maui and places like Kauai and Oahu. Do you feel that there's a role for the state to invest in the future for more of a knowledge-based economy, like to establish a Marine Institute here in Maui, to establish perhaps a Native Hawaiian college here in Maui, not just in Hilo or in Manoa, perhaps associated with Kamehameha schools, or perhaps associated with some other location. But do you feel that there's opportunities for the educational infrastructure and the jobs it brings to expand here in Maui? And what role should the state play in that?
Yeah, I think you're touching on the role exactly. It's as a catalyst to these opportunities. But first thing, the state needs to decide where are the key opportunities, and I would love to explore that with our community here. I just looking around at our community, I'm like, I see a great opportunity for sort of a range of healing arts, and that both being a training opportunity, but attract and connecting with the tourist industry. The tourist industry is a great it 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 has it brings people here, and in some way, if we're not utilizing those people well enough, right? And one way we could utilize those people is attracting people who want to engage in a healing retreat, in some sort of wellness and wholeness kind of activity, because I think Maui is already in many minds one of the epicenters for that. Why aren't we attracting more people with those intentions, and then building the industry outside of the tourist industry that reinforces and can utilize those folks and the revenue that it brings. I think that our restaurant industry has done that exactly, right? Our food trucks, like it's both local money, but also the tourist dollars, and then we all benefit. And it's a matter of sort of scaling and building out the industry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anne, ready for your last question?
Yeah. So as you know, there's been a long, well, I should say recent history of bribery scandals, and a more recent one of somebody who accepted $35,000 in an possible illegal campaign donation, which I don't think our AG Ann Lopez has come up with a response for that. And also there was a recent sunshine law violation when a committee, state legislature committee meeting happened behind closed doors. And so how can we have all these problems with scandals and sunshine law violations that have occurred, backdoor meetings, and what can we do about that? I mean, is there enough investigation that's taking place right now, or
Yeah,
what do you see as a solution to that?
so I mentioned some of the solutions I mentioned already, and it's public financing, it's term limits, it's really kind of disincentivizing that kind of career politician approach, and hopefully reinforcing that the idea of service, and that the legislature is somewhere that someone goes to serve the community for 10, 12 years, right? And they come with ideas, and they get their shot. And then at the end of that time, it's like, okay, someone else's chance to do this. I think part of it is the rules that I mentioned, and how bills can end up in a committee, and without any reason or rhyme, just simply disappear in the committee, and
Without any hearing.
yeah, and so it's partly that part of it always comes back to leadership, and we can't. How do we attract good leaders to run for office? This is my first time running for office. I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be complex. It's a whole new world. And I'm already thinking, the educator in me is like, well, okay, this you can just have sort of a curriculum and make it really straightforward. And it's like, do this first, and then you're ready to step into the role. And then second step and third step. I'm already kind of thinking along those lines in order to bring more people into the system, and make the barriers just less. I think that's another way. We might also, And one idea that I heard through this process is making the ledge a year-round proposition. So it's a full-time job. People aren't trying to make, luckily I started consulting, so I have some flexibility. But how about, our folks who may be working in food industry or a teacher, right? How do they carry, themselves through the rest of the year if they decide to become a legislator? So it's those kind of gaps that I think encourage corruption, encourage kind of looking for a side hustle. And we need to close those gaps because it's, again, if we can't trust our government, we can't trust our elected leaders, then we can't do big things with our government. And the way the world is coming, we haven't even talked about AI. We talk, like about the disruptions of war and all those kind of things. Things are only getting more complex, and we need a government that can address that complexity. And in order to address that complexity, the majority of us need to trust that government. And right now, it feels like most people don't.
Mm.
We need to change that.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Keoni, I want to thank you. I've been so impressed with your responses, the way you articulate things, your insightfulness. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to get to know you better and also to get your insight on so many different issues. For those of you who are voters, again, this is for District 12, and it'll be for the Democratic ticket. So you'll be going against Ka Yamashita. So again, hopefully, we'll see you at a later time. But again, this is for our primary, and those who are successful will go into the general election. There's a Republican for the District 12 that'll be in the general election also then, when we have that. So thank you again, Keoni. And greatly appreciate your insights.
Don't forget to vote by August 11th.
Yes.
August 8th.
And your district,
August 8th.
By August 8th.
Yeah. by
your
August 8th,
district 12, right?
Yeah. District 12.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. I really appreciate the opportunity. And honestly, no matter what happens on August 8th, I'm not going to stop. I've got the infrastructure. I have sort of a sense of what needs to happen. And so I'm just going to keep pushing forward. And so everyone out there, I look forward to connecting because we need to move and change things now.
Thank you, Keoni. Really appreciate it. Mahalo.
Mahalo.